Hello, good morning and welcome to the AMUs with me, Mapita CBD. In our first story, Vice President Dr. Balmea says beginning April this year, the school feeding program will be digitized. This, he notes, is part of moves to cut back on the waste and underhand dealings that have worked against the social intervention program for school children in most parts of the country. The system will also monitor what pupils are fed with at every given time to ensure quality of meals and verification of claims. Dr. Balmea has been speaking at the 70th anniversary celebration of the Jai Senior High School in Takrade.
Next month, ladies and gentlemen, we are digitizing the school feeding program. And next month, I will launch, we looked at it last week, it's all set. Next month, we will launch a digitized school feeding program. We will know every school in the country, every day, if you feed them rice and beans, we will know. How many students you have fed, we will know. There will be no room for kululu in the school feeding program after we launch this program next month. We are doing so much for the first time, and we need to understand that we are changing this country. We are transforming this country. Let nobody tell us that we cannot do it.
Some members of the governing Patriotic Party in Fomena constituency are questioning the exemption of the constituency in the party's election for polling station executives. They've also threatened to cross carpets and campaign for the opposition NDC to empower come 2024. Mohammed Yuddin has more.
The angry members were seen changing the party colors of the MPP at the constituency office to that of the opposition NDC.
But what we are trying to do today is just highlighting for everybody to see that whatever we told them 2 weeks ago, if you told me we gave them 1 week, but we gave extra week to wait, maybe they were not prepared. So we gave them another 1 week, making 2 weeks. And we haven't had any reasonable and sensible thing from our general secretary. That is why I always tell them politically illiterate. You have this chunk of people who are supporting your base, and you want to disperse them.
They threaten to support opposition NDC to win the 2024 election due to what they described as unfair treatment by the MPP leadership.
I'll go to NDC. National Democratic Congress. I'll go to NDC. I'll do full campaign for NDC. You alone or your entire family? My entire family. I'll do the campaign, severe campaign for NDC party. Yes. Because the MPP party, they have done nothing to me. Okay. I've suffered a lot. So they're not good.
The group says the suspension of the internal party election in the Fomena constituency is unacceptable. On 22nd of February, the members issued a one-week ultimatum to the national executives of the MPP to respond to allegation of creating room for Andrews Amoakwasiama to contest as an unopposed parliamentary candidate in the 2024 election. They claim leadership of the party failed to respond to their concerns.
You want to scatter them.
Why does he stand accused?
I'm not accusing though. But what I'm saying is that how could you allow the independent candidate opposed on your party members?
You haven't passed through the procedural.
Exactly, there is a documented, there's codified procedure, there's written down procedure that they have to pass through. They didn't do any of this. Somebody could quote Article 3 clause 9 clause 1 that if you eliminate yourself from the party, you automatically go on. When you want to come back to the party, write something to the party. And nobody has written that. And no executive has also shown that the independent and its people has written to the party.
A report by Mohammed Nuruddin.
The increase in fuel prices has led to a 15% hike in transport fares across the country. Members of the Techiman Pragya Riders Association say the insistent hike in fuel prices is adversely affecting the Okada business. They want government to stabilize the price of the commodity to help keep them in business. And our Sabit has been interacting with some of them and now reports.
Commercial motorcyclists, better known as Pragya in the Techiman municipality of the Borno East region, are expressing passionate grief about the increase in the pump prices of petroleum products across the country over the past few months. Chairman of the Pragya Riders Association, Awal Mohammed, in an interview with JoyNews, noted that the situation is compounding to the economic hardships they have been faced with.
The fuel hike in the country is affecting us seriously. Many of our guys always say that they are just working for the oil pumps. They don't get money. All the money goes to the fuel station. Not only that, the oil, that engine oil, you need to change. In a month, you have to buy 4 liters to change your. The spare parts are also high, coupled with bad roads.
Even though there's been a 15% hike in transport fares across major transport unions, Awal Mohammed says for those in the tricycle trade, it only means they are only working for the oil marketing companies.
The 15%, even when you calculate 15%, it's not up to 20 pesos and 30 pesos of our old charges. So it means that we are still working for the pump, and that we pray that government should do something. At least they should maintain it.
He laments the number of youth currently employed by the Pragya trade and asks that legalizing the tricycle business will contribute towards decreasing the unemployment challenges across the country.
There are a lot of youths in this business. Techiman alone, we have more than 2,000 youth in this. And I know that in the whole nation, there are thousands of Ghanaians who found comfort in this Pragya business and Okada. And that one also tells that there are a lot of people who are looking for jobs. And so it's our prayer that government will look at that and listen to our plight. At least legalize this for us. Legalize it so that youth will get more jobs.
But to those riders who find solace in the Pragya trade, what does these incessant hikes in fuel prices mean to them? The hike in the prices of fuel is really affecting our business. We spend about 80 cedis filling our tanks now, and that is not even enough. And this is really affecting us. At first we fill our tanks with 45 Ghana cedis and work with it for the whole day. But now we spend 65 cedis, and by 3 p.m. we have to go to the pumps again. We use all the money in buying fuel. The situation is not only affecting the motorcyclists. The people who patronize their services are equally worried. Some of them say the hike in fares will worsen their financial challenges. This will worsen our plight. We don't have money and we can't be trekking too, so we are really suffering. Both the riders and the passengers have one common plea. They call on authorities to work towards stabilizing the prices of fuel at the pumps to help save the situation. Government should reduce the fuel prices so we can patronize their services. If not, we'll really be in trouble.
We pray that government will look at something, then reduce the price or maintain it for a while. At least if the fuel price, we know that we can maintain for some time, then we can also adjust ourselves and work about it.
Reporting for Joy News, Anas Sabit, Techiman.
Still in Techiman, the Municipal Director of Health Services, Dr. Kwabena Fosuhini-Kusi, has charged municipal authorities to work towards enforcing bylaws governing the vaccination of dogs within the area. With the municipality recording cases of rabies, Dr. Kusi hopes this would help curb the spread of the disease. He was speaking at the municipality's annual health review meeting held in Techiman. Anas Sabit again.
The primary objective of the annual performance review meeting is to provide a very brief but well-informed, balanced and transparent assessment of the municipality's performance and factors that likely influence it. Speaking at the 2021 edition held under the theme, Harnessing Health Opportunities in the Midst of COVID-19, Municipal Director of Health Services Dr. Kwabena Fosuhini-Kusi charged stakeholders within the municipality to collectively support the Directorate in its quest to vaccinate its targeted population.
As I speak, we have about 30 teams on the field, frantically and practically chasing people in their homes to be vaccinated, the door-to-door approach. Let me take this opportunity to remind the general public that COVID-19 is still with us. And I'm appealing passionately to all relevant stakeholders gathered here to help us drum home the message that COVID-19 vaccination saves lives by reducing morbidity and mortality of the disease.
Dr. Fosuhini again charged the Municipal Assembly to enforce the bylaws on the vaccination of dogs, with the municipality recording cases of suspected rabies.
Let me take this opportunity to remind the general public to vaccinate their dogs. And the Municipal Assembly should enforce the bylaws on the vaccination of dogs, since we already have a case of a suspected rabies case who unfortunately died. So if you know you want to keep a dog as a pet, please, this is an appeal. Kindly see to it that that dog is vaccinated.
Deputy Regional Director of Health Services in charge of public health, Dr. Paulina Apia, charged the people of the municipality and the region at large to have general screening at least once a year.
This year has been declared Operation Healthy Living. By this, everyone in Bunu East region, 18 years and above, should have general screening at least once a year. We have declared the last Wednesday of every month Regional Screening Day. Kindly indicate how, as a district, you are going to operationalize this. Develop campaign messages, including at least everyone having the opportunity to use the birthday to do a health check.
Representative of the Paramount Chief of the Techiman Traditional Council, Nana Boache Amiao Pentempre II, charged policymakers to work towards fast-tracking the construction of the proposed Bunu East Regional Hospital, as well as institute measures capable of strengthening research institutions to help save possible disastrous situations.
The construction of the proposed Bunu East Regional Hospital is long overdue. I call on the powers that be to expedite action on this project. 2, our research institutions must be strengthened to come out with findings as quickly as possible to save possible disastrous situations.
Municipal Chief Executive for Techiman, Benjamin Yaojako, assured the Directorate of the Assembly's support to help save lives. Reporting for Joy News, Anas Sabit, Techiman.
The 1993 Nobel Prize laureate in medicine and physiology, Sir Richard Roberts, is urging African scientists to make good research their ultimate goal. He, however, believes getting an excellent education early is crucial. He spoke at the renowned Scholars Forum by the Young Researchers Forum, YRF, of Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Kwesi Deborah reports.
Sir Richard is credited with pioneering work on DNA sequencing and genetic engineering, which led to the discovery of what is known as alternative splicing of genes. He, however, admonished African scientists not to make Nobel Prize their ambition.
It's always a mistake to make becoming a Nobel Prize winner your ambition, because there are so few that are ever given that the chance of achieving it are very small. But to do good research, this is an excellent ambition, and this is something that you should try for. And I think the way to do it in Africa is to get the very best education you can while you're young, and then to go abroad in order to go to university and continue your studies in university. But then, when you're finished and you've learned, go back to Africa and see what you can do to help Africa. And this is one of the reasons
Sir Richard, who has also set up a for-profit company, New England Biolabs, hinted that a similar outfit will be set up in Africa to help fund African research.
And this is one of the reasons why we want to start this small company in Africa that will, we hope, generate some money for research, and will show how it is in fact possible to succeed in Africa, to make some money, to do research. We anticipate the company will be making research reagents, things that we would normally make here and then ship to Africa. And we hope that if the company is successful, that they will head off in different directions and do some things that we would never have thought to do ourselves.
Young Researchers Forum, which is under the aegis of the Office of Grants and Research, is a network of young faculty members of the university. It seeks to encourage research citizenship and culture among members. The renowned Scholars Dialogue, RSD, is one of its programs. Professor Marian Asanto Ankansa is lead.
And this year, January 2022, I took office as the lead for the Young Researchers Forum. And as part of the proposals I presented, one of them was the renowned Scholars Dialogue, which the entire team bought into because it seeks to showcase people who have studied in high institutions of learning and are applying it either in academia or elsewhere, making impact and causing social change. So we bring on board eminent people making an impact on society to encourage the young researchers in the forum about the things we are doing, challenges we might encounter, and the successes that await us. And so this is the first of its kind, and it's the maiden edition, and we are so fortunate to have hosted a Nobel Prize winner, Sir Richard Roberts, who is the 1993 Nobel Prize winner in physiology and medicine.
Reporting for JoyNews, Kwesi Deborah.
Fatima Sumani was inspired to stand up and create a job for herself by her desire to do something different and not get bogged down in life. She abandoned her studies at the University for Development Studies in order to pursue what pays well. Muhammad Nuruddin reports other young women in Tamale are now taking advantage of Fatima's experience to learn fashion design.
My name is Fatima Sumani. I completed University for Development Studies, offered Integrated Development Studies. Yes, I ventured into fashion and designing as just the interest, the skill I'd wanted to just acquire, the passion that drove me into it. From UDS, after my national service, I then decided to pursue it as a profession.
At the end of her national service in 2012, she decided to enroll at Abbey Creation University College for 6 months of training in fashion design. Fatima says she saved the monthly allowance for the training.
Whilst having my national service program, I had it in mind already that right after national service, I was going to pursue this course, and it involves money. So I saved my alawa for that 1 whole year period. So what I saved is what I took to school. But the point that you actually need capital to start something is not the whole, that's not the whole situation. Your passion pushes you. You can actually start. My field, for instance, having even just a needle and thread is enough for you to gather money for a sewing machine. Then after the sewing machine, you can also gather enough for a different thing. That was how I grew.
The 34-year-old does not regret making such a decision, but how much does she earn?
Months, we do most bridals. So in a month where we have the bridal clients coming in, we can make like 20. Yes, we can make like 20. But there are also times you make less. Yes, there are also times you make. Yeah, that's profit. There are also times you make less than 1,000 Ghana cedis. There are times like that with the business. You make less than 1,000 Ghana cedis, and there are also times you make more of it.
So far, Fatima has trained 21 women at her institute. 6 of them are graduates from various universities across the country. Hafiz Abdallah, a KNUST real estate graduate, and Besla Kando, who also studied community nutrition from UDS, are among the current trainees.
I've been here for about a month now. So far we've learned how to do basic hand stitches, decorative stitches, seams, and now we are working on finishes. So I'm working on one now, and I'm sure, I hope, and I'm sure that at the end of the 6 months learning period, I'll be able to make my own clothes and make clothes for my family as well.
I'm basically here to learn everything I need to know about fashion, and so I took this step to join this fashion class and learn, because fashion is one thing that I've always loved and I've always wanted to explore, but I've never really found the right time to do it. And so I've been talking to Fatih for a while now, and then when the opportunity presented to join the weekend class, I said, why not? Let me come and do something that I've always wanted to learn, something that I love and I use almost every day.
Fatima says there is hope for her business, and there is also hope for graduates chasing a few non-existing jobs. A report by Mohammed Nuruddin.
That's it for the AM News. For more news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com. I am Peter CBD. The AM show continues.
Even as we contemplate the memory of Elvis Koku Kwashi, the real boss, we also celebrate our women today. In case you're now connecting with us, happy International Women's Day. Now, joining us for the news review this morning, like I did mention, we have a surprise guest. She's one that, if you're old enough, you would remember. But maybe if you don't, she's a journalist and media consultant. Liz Hayfran Asari is her name. A very good morning to you, Madam Hayfran Asari. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
It's a real pleasure having you join the conversation. And we're going to be interacting with her as we dig into the papers as well. But I would just like to start with this little bit. I'd like to find out from you, I mean, contemplating today, I cast my mind back to the times when women were disenfranchised. Even today, where in some parts of the Middle East and beyond, women can't freely drive. They must be accompanied by someone and all of that. There are all of these issues. There's the issue of bias at work and wherever it is, limited opportunities, reflecting on women up to today. What you saw maybe in your childhood and what you see now, what has changed and what more can change?
Let me start by greeting all women and saying that we are breaking the bias. There has always been a bias against women, and we have been, what word should I use? Struggling or fighting to be recognized. But looking back from when I was a child to now, I think women have made great strides, because now you find women almost in every sector. Even in male-dominated areas, you find women. And you find women doing well, doing excellently, such that the men cannot ignore the women anymore. But there are still biases, unconscious biases, maybe some by women ourselves, but mainly by our male counterparts who think that we are trying to overshadow them. But the percentages are still very low. And a lot more women need to be represented, especially in decision making. But women have made great strides over the years.
Interesting, your take on this bit. How do you feel about this year's theme, Break the Bias? And what areas do you feel in Ghana, in our national life, we should be targeting when it comes to breaking the bias? One thing that comes to mind, for example, you look at our legislative body, Parliament, and you would find 20 women on both sides. Do the math, and you would find what? About 117 men on the other ends. How much do you feel we can do in Ghana in breaking the bias?
A lot more education, a lot more encouragement for women to take up political positions, a lot more interaction with women. Get women to understand that they have a role to play, that they complement the men. It's not like it's a fight against the men. We are not asking that we be men. We are only asking for equity. We are just asking that the men recognize that the women have something to offer. And we need to offer it so that the country is balanced. We are a country that has more women than men, but you have men dominating in almost every sector. And it's still male dominated in politics, in business, in agriculture. So we need to get women to take up the roles and to fight and to work hard and to make sure that we are recognized and we play our parts meaningfully.
All right, so on that note, let me say once more to you and to all women across the world, anyone connecting with us, wherever you are, happy International Women's Day. Let's get into the daily graphic.
Breaking the bias.
Indeed, indeed. And for those of you who are not aware, that is the sign for the day. Break the bias. Of course, we're breaking all the chains, all the fetters. Break the bias. The Daily Graphic newspaper. No need to panic over economic challenges. Professor Kwesi Botwe says so. And interestingly, in recent times, he's been intimating that he was cowed or made to kowtow when it comes to keeping quiet about the economic situation in our country because he was afraid of victimization. And for someone of his stature, the longest serving finance minister, and for someone with his clout, that is, it makes for interesting, very interesting reading. The story is on page 16. Let me just take a quick stab at it. And in there, so it says, no need to panic over economic challenges. That's what former Minister of Finance, Professor Kwesi Botwe, has said. And he says it is premature to push the panic button over the country's current economic challenges. He served as finance minister, from 1982 to 1995. And he said, in order to avoid falling into a catastrophe, there was also the need to create public space for national discourse on the way forward in solving the economic crisis. So allow more people, be more involving when it comes to the consultative process of getting us out of this economic situation. Because guess what? No Ghanaian wants to be here. Or minor boy, a bogu yenina yetriso. But let me come to you, Liz. What do you think about the current economic challenges we are facing, how people have been reacting? What is your economic reality, and how hopeful are you that we shall come out of this?
There's always hope if you work towards achieving success. There's always hope, and you have to set your mind to it. But when you come into a situation where everything, like you said, is falling on your head, sometimes you just throw your hands up in despair because you are not seeing your way clear. And if you ask me my economic situation, I can tell you that it is dire because I really don't see my way clear. You go to the market today, things are one price. You go tomorrow, the prices have gone up. You go the following day, the prices have even gone higher. And so you begin to wonder because you know how much you earn at the end of the month and you have a budget that you're leading yourself to or living by. And when it comes to the fact that your budget is thrown out the window and you're spending more than you're earning, and you can't save anything, you can't keep anything, then definitely you will despair. But interestingly, when Dr. Kwesi Boche says no panic, he has been there before. He knows what he's talking about. He probably is seeing a brighter road ahead. He probably is seeing some light at the end of the tunnel that maybe I am not seeing because he has been in that seat for a very long time. But then it bothers me to think that we do not want to have discourse with him to see how far we can go or to see how we can correct what is probably ailing us today. So it behoves on us, like you said, to have more discussions, especially with those who are well-versed in economics and know how to run a country economically and who know how to deal with our finances as a country.
Right. And it's interesting, the picture you paint that Prof is hopeful, but your economic circumstances, I didn't know whether that gives you a bit of cold comfort or a bit of a bleak outlook. But only yesterday, and this is how serious for some people it is, because for those who are stricken by dire economic circumstances, who are earning 250 cedis a month, 300 cedis a month, 150 cedis a month, this can be excruciating. Yesterday, I was with someone who went to market and purchased tomatoes, and 3 tomatoes, some Mobrawa tomatoes, very small ones, went for 2 cedis. Someone else told me that in some instances, 1 goes for 1 cedi. So you see the reality out there, and you realize that it's a really crushing feeling. But let me just ask you, I want to believe, and this is a very humble question, you can choose to answer it. I want to believe, are you getting any pension benefits?
Why do you think I'm on pension?
I was just asking. I just wanted to know. because I wanted to find out. You know, a lot of people complain about when they move on, the little that comes in is not enough to, keep body and soul together. So I wanted to find out whether you were adding that to maybe your other to see whether things are still going to be better or maybe still be what they are.
Even that, I doubt it would make any difference. I don't think it will make a great difference because you want to talk about, let me talk about some things that I've had to cut back on. Traveling for funerals. I mean, especially out of Accra. If I fuel my car to go for a funeral in Takoradi and come back, a chunk of my money is gone on fuel. I'm not thinking about accommodation and feeding and the like, because let's say if I go to Takoradi, I'll go home, there's a family there and things like that. But the fuel alone, and then you again have to think about the maintenance of the car. going in and coming out. So definitely your finances are just dwindling. You can't really program yourself well. So what you have to do probably would be to cut out certain social activities that you probably would have undertaken. And when it comes to family, it becomes very difficult, because when you cut it out, then people think that you don't care. They don't realize that you probably don't have that amount of money to spend. And if you say you're going with public transport, again, not very reliable. You can go and sit in STC for hours before the bus will take off.
Right.
So what other options do you have? And so it is, like I said, for me, it is dire. It is very dire. And for me, who has children who have even finished university, who are still sitting home and can't get employment, it even makes it even more worrying.
What a picture you've painted this morning. Well, Chief, 4 others shot over alleged chieftaincy dispute in Tamale, the Dakbema, now pictured there. And those who allegedly were involved, about 15 of them, the police is trying to sniff them out. I'll tell you about something else the police is doing. They have sniffed out 2 people who are responsible for some of the bullion van attacks we've seen in recent times. Story on page 28. Let's invest for mutual benefit, Prime Minister Motley says, the Barbadian Prime Minister, of course, from our Independence Day celebrations. But getting women into leadership, like I was talking about, Liz, 5 advocate conscious agenda. And the women leaders are the Chancellor of the University of Ghana, Mary Chinri Hesse. There's a former First Lady and founder of the Developing Women for Mobilization, Nana Kunedu Ajiman Rawlings. There's also the CEO of the Ghana Enterprises Agency, Kwasi Yankee Aye, the Director General of the Technical and Vocational Education Training Service, Mausi Nudeko Awiti. And they are asking for a bigger quota in governance. They are talking about progress on women's empowerment, and they are giving that call to action. Liz, the Scandinavian countries, or if you like, the Norways, the Swedens, the Finlands, they're always high up there when it comes to the indexes, quality of life, life expectancy, and of course, women in pole position when it comes to leadership. What do you think the example is that we can learn from them? Because in our world, they are the benchmark.
I don't know. I'll have to go and research that one. But I believe that they're paying attention to women and to what women can contribute. Like I said earlier, it's not a competition between women and men. It's a complementation. So if we see it that way, and if we ask women to work hard and move to the top, then we must be giving them the space. I believe that if women are still striving and are still working hard, women have the capability to go into those positions. But in Ghana, for instance, if you're a woman who wants to go into politics, if your family is not discouraging you, some loved one is discouraging you, or the public is saying all kinds of negative things about you, we have become so negative-minded that we do not encourage women to step out of their zone. Women themselves, like I said, it could be an unconscious bias that, oh, I don't want them talking about me. I don't want them coming to find out anything about me, all the lies that will go on about me. You need tough skin to be able to step into leadership. And if we do not tone down on the negativities that we attach to people in these positions, then we will not be encouraging women at all, because women are sensitive, are emotional, and would rather want to protect their families and live their lives in a kind of somber way than rather be in the forefront where they'll be despised, where they'll be spoken against, where the attitude of people towards them would be negative. So you wonder why you fought for that place in the first place.
Right.
So we need to encourage our women. We need to speak positively, especially the girls who are coming up. They're seeing women get to certain positions, but then it looks like that is the end. That's why we need to break the bias. We need to break those glass ceilings and go beyond, because women can contribute a lot to the development of Ghana. When you look
Speaking, Liz, about breaking that glass ceiling, politically speaking, we've had the likes of Bridget Jokbanuku for the PPP standing as their presidential candidate. We've had Nana Kunedu Agyemang Rawlings for the NDP. We've had Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman as the running mate for the NDC in the last election. All of these. How soon and how expectant are you of seeing a woman become president in Ghana?
How soon?
How soon? How expectant are you?
Maybe yesterday. I'm very expectant. I believe that we can have a woman leader. And I believe that when we have a woman leader, she probably would do a lot more than we expect from her.
Right.
What is happening in Ghana politics now is that women are not being given the chance to advance politically. You always realize that there's some male counterpart somewhere who is trying to struggle with her or fight with her or gain her position. And therefore, all the negatives and all the mudslinging and all the name calling begin. And that is why women are not really putting themselves out there. If that will stop, if our attitude would change, if we would stop seeing women as just domestic beings, being in the home and being in the kitchen, and we see women as being true leaders, fighting for what everybody wants, development and progress, then we probably will put our weight behind the women and they would really make an impact.
Right. Let's quickly get into the Daily Guide newspaper list. 2 cops cited in bullion van robberies, as has been mentioned. Mreku Duka gifts $18,000 car to best teacher. Interesting. Gunmen attack Dakpema Na and 4 others. And this one that I'd like you to chew on briefly, Liz. Will resist coup makers. Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic. How do you feel about all this rhetoric where people have been pointing fingers, saying, look, let's all be very careful because some of the things we're seeing now from the economy, as would be cited by Professor Raymond Atuguba, Dean of the University of Ghana Faculty of Law, to other people, other speakers, security analysts who have said, there are certain ingredients. Watch them, check them, so you don't end up here. I saw a post supposedly from Gabi Asare-Otridako from 2013 where he was citing current Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta and some of the statements he had made back then. This coup talk, good or bad, or should we just keep mute?
Good or bad? Or should we just keep mute? I don't think we should keep mute. And I think it's good. I believe that when we see certain signs, we need to be careful.
Right.
Nobody wants a coup in Ghana. We have said that we won't have another coup. And I'm sure if we go by our word, and if anybody tries, we will resist as a people. And we will not run away. We will resist as a people and we will not run away. We'll really stand and resist. But again, what is the picture? What Prof. Atuguba said, are there underlying factors that could cause a coup in Ghana? Have we really studied or researched to see what he said and if it is true? If it is true, what action are we taking to mitigate all the things that would kind of like push somebody towards a coup? We need to be circumspect in the way we do our things. We just don't criticize for criticizing's sake. We need to criticize constructively. When somebody says something, we shouldn't be that negative and think that, oh, it's because he belongs to party A or party B, or he's affiliated to party A or party B. Let us be objective as a people. Let us really work towards ensuring that we have a peaceful nation and that nobody is going to take up arms. The president has said that it will be resisted. Good. And I'm sure he's not talking about only Ghana. He's talking about West Africa as West Africa chair. But what are the signs on the ground? Can we do something about the signs on the ground to mitigate anybody thinking or dreaming that that can happen? Let us work at it. Let us make sure that we mitigate any possibility so that nothing arises. It behoves on us to ensure that the country is safe and sound and that people are comfortable and our standards of living are good, such that nobody would want to topple a government.
Interesting. Wonderful points you make there. But also to add that no one wants strife, because in any form of strife, whether a coup, whether a war between countries or whatever, women and children are the ones who suffer the most, and nobody wants that. We see, I was pointing out earlier when I started the show that this is one of the worst humanitarian crisis situations we've seen in Europe in a long time. In fact, the exodus of more than 1.5 million people per the UN's data means that this is the biggest exodus in Europe since World War II, from Ukraine to Poland to Moldova and to all those other countries, Romania and others. And nobody wants that. Let's take a quick look.
You say women and children suffer the most. We always forget the elderly. The elderly suffer a lot,
right?
Especially if they do not have their children looking after them, or if they do not have the younger ones looking after them, that they have to struggle on their own. So we need to start paying attention to our elderly and giving them that respect that they deserve.
Very interesting. Let's quickly wrap up with these next 2 or 3 papers and the review as well. I'll go back to Professor Botre, who says, government must resist solutions that will delay hard decisions. And of course, he intimates there that don't go for the shortcut. It may take some time, but use prudent measures that will buoy our economy in the long term, rather than go for a quick fix that will rather dig us deeper into the hole of economic debt and more. There's also NPP Youth Wing to raise funds in support of Ghanaian students in Ukraine, and NPA protects investors with robust regulatory system. That's according to the CEO. When you consider this, our evacuation so far, when it comes to our students, our brothers and sisters in Ukraine, and you also contemplate the fact that some of them were given the opportunity, their tickets were paid for, come back to Ghana, and they said, no, we prefer to be in war-torn Ukraine than to come to Ghana. How does that make you feel? Especially, and if I might add, especially on the back of Independence Day.
Picture we have painted to the world. We as Ghanaians have painted a bleak picture. So why would they want to come back and come and live here and suffer when we are crying that we are suffering? So we have harped too much on our negatives and we don't see any positives at all. Our attitude must change. If our attitudes don't change, our own will desert us.
I'd like you to quickly do this for us, because you do have a point. We tend to harp on the negative. Even as we've spoken about the bad things, what for you are some of the good things, amazing things happening in Ghana that we should look at and cherish as we celebrate 65 years of national life?
As far as we've come, we probably are not seeing, we are being very short-sighted. But like I said, we have come a long way. We have had women come through from just being secretaries and typists to being CEOs. We have had a country where our mortality rates have gone down. We've had a country where we've been able to contribute positively to our health sector over the years. It hasn't been just one government, it has been progressive. We think that it's probably there now because we do not have all the kinds of monies that we wish we had to be able to live the kind of life that we want to live. But we have progressed a lot. I think that even in our schools are doing quite well. There is more room for improvement. When I look at what we used to study in school and come out with, get all the degrees that we needed, we still had to go back and focus on a career to follow. Otherwise, then we had a degree and we were pushed into teaching and we were pushed into all kinds of things. I think that our focus is gradually changing.
Right.
I think that it is not as fast as we would want it. I keep saying that I look at the free SHS and I still have a lot of questions that I need to ask that need to be answered. Because are we putting people in school just for putting them in school's sake? Or we are putting people in school and ensuring that the quality that they come out with when they finish school is something that will contribute to developing this country. It's something that will contribute to the person being confident and standing on their feet and saying that, yes, I'm through school and I can do A, B, C, D, E. So let's not just look at the numbers going through school. Let's look at the quality that is coming out. Let's look at the quality of our health sector. Does it need to be improved? Yes, it does. What do we have to do? Are we giving the Ghana Health Service the space to be able to decide what the nation needs with regards to health, or is only the Ministry of Health? Are we making sure that we complement each other? Are we making sure that the sectors are working together such that what has been started will be finished? Are we making sure that the taxpayers' money is not being wasted frivolously because one government takes over from another and feels that what they were doing is not my priority, something else is my priority?
Right.
What is the National Development Planning Commission doing? Is it coming out with a national plan that will last maybe 20, 30, 40 years so that no matter the government that comes, we have a plan to make sure that we are getting to a certain point? And that is where our focus should be.
Thank you so much, Liz. I'll just wrap with these two headlines and then it's a wrap. Kwesi Boche, IMF not option to revive economy, contrary to what some others have said. And government borrowed 58 billion Ghana cedis via treasury bills in 2021. The first story was from the Daily Statesman. This one is from the Business Analyst. But Liz, thank you so much for joining the conversation today. And of course, together, we can break the bias. Thank you for joining.
We will break the bias.
Have a lovely day. And that's how we wrap the news review for this morning. There's more coming your way with Muftau Nabila Abdullahi as we veer into sports. Stay.
Now let's move on to former IBF and IBO bantamweight champion Joseph Agbeko has told Joy Sports that he is uncertain about his immediate future. His last international fight was against Abba Maris in August 2021. Maris beat Agbeko in one of the most controversial fights in recent years. Speaking on Joy Sports Link, the 41-year-old boxer says he is focusing more on developing the next generation of Ghanaian boxers.
Boxing is a sport that nobody has to retire.
Okay.
It's a sport that if you don't beat your opponent, it's going to beat you. When you start feeling the punches, nobody's going to tell you to retire. So when I listen to people telling other fighters to stop boxing, I laugh sometimes because boxing is one sport that I believe that is one of the major career in life that we can say God calls people to do it, as our religious leaders who say, oh, this is a man of God, or God has called you, you know. Okay. I believe boxing is one of a career that you have to be called by God before you can do that. I always mix boxing with religious leaders' job.
I see.
Because I believe all the prophets or all the religious leaders were being called by God. And boxing is a sport that when you go into the gym, you want to be a boxer. When you start sparring, on your first day, you will see blood coming out of your mouth or your nose or a cut or whatever. On your second day, you will still see blood. You will continue to see blood until some time. On your easy day, you still see blood. So when you see someone goes into the gym and then he get bloody nose and then goes home and come back the following day, then you have to know that something is born in him. Okay. The sport is born in him. The passion is there. When you have that passion inside you, you don't really focus on the financial benefits of the sport. You don't focus on anything. You just enjoy doing it. And that is what I call calling. I see. You know, you do something with no expectation of fundraising, no expectation of anything, and it's a tough sport. The prophets are warriors because they fight for God, you know. So boxers are like prophets, you know. So I think I would say gradually the passion is dying slowly inside me. That's what I would say. The frustration keeps growing, and right now my focus is beginning to grow more in the younger generation. So we don't know, maybe we might call it a quit soon, maybe, you know, so we don't know.
Now, former Press Secretary to J. Kwabena Japan has attributed Ghana's recent struggles on the international and continental stage to over-reliance on foreign-based players. After a disastrous AFCON appearance, the Black Stars embarked on image-redeeming exercise as they engage Nigeria in a World Cup qualifier playoff later this month. Kwabena Japan, a former management member of Asante Kotoko, is worried locally based players have not been given opportunities.
This over-reliance on so-called foreign-based players who are no much better than the players we have in our country is wrong. We have to look back at home. Get the people of Ghana back again behind their national team when they see their local players playing a major role in the national team. I think it's something that we can do. We should encourage our own, like the Nigerians are doing with the Guavon. We have a lot of players, Michael Osei. Where are they? Where are these coaches? Emmanuel Gago, you know, Akuno was not given long enough time and there was too much interference in his work. You know, we have to organize them. Joseph Addo, he used to be a great player with Hearts of Oak, was in America with the MLS. He would be a good coach, for instance. There has to be a deliberate policy of allowing these guys to do their badges and be able to take over the local teams and then the national team. Okay. If we don't have a production line, we should not expect. That's why we can go back to someone who hasn't coached for 10 years and go and offer him the job to come and run the national team.
Now to the Ghana Premier League. In the Ghana Premier League, 11 Wonders were held to a 1-0 stalemate by Brekum Chelsea in Techiman on Monday.
Hello, warm welcome to the Ohene Amiao Park here in the capital of the Techiman Municipal and also the Blue East region of Ghana, where we bring to you the Ghana Premier League Matchday 19 fixture between 11 Wonders and Brekum Chelsea. My name is Nana Dakwa Jesse, together with our stream switcher Philip. We're your commentators for this afternoon's game here in Techiman. There we go, it's kickoff here in Techiman. It's 11 Wonders against Brekum Chelsea. It's Chelsea on the move, coming so close. It's looking dangerous. And Brekum Chelsea have taken the lead.
Defending not good enough. Everything about the goal is comical from the viewpoint of Techiman. 11 Wonders should be doing a lot better, but taking nothing away from the finish and the shared desire of this Brekum Chelsea side. What a start.
Perry Roxon sends in a cross. Header comes, but off target. Emmanuel Boyne sends the cross in. Abdullah gets something on it, and that's it. Moro Sumaila. But
but he only tips the ball, and the ball is not even out of the box. It's still in the box, and the ball is still alive. No Chelsea defender reacts quickly enough.
Referee whistles for the end of the first half here at the Ohiniamia Park in Techiman. Second half already underway here in Techiman. Here's Boyan up against Anani Dasso to find Samaila Moro, who sends a cross in. Great goalkeeping from Gregory Obinsecho again. Anochi Bedu finds Nasiru. Here is Lord Amwa. He sends a teasing cross in, and Kelvin Obin's header goes out as a goal kick.
Again, it's a really good ball. Just might have got in behind him slightly. Yeah, just slightly, and he should be doing better. I think he should be.
Amponsa's ball is in. Henry Ensu does not connect. So close.
So that is a big chance. That is a big chance. And there's a free header on mark. Defending is poor.
Anochibedu's trying to get to Indego. Chelsea coming so close again. Prince Bafu's throw in. Flicked on by La. Abdul Latif. Handball. Nope.
Unfortunately, we didn't see that. We should have seen that. I mean, it just went down to yeah.
Now let's hear from the coaches of 11 Wonders and Brekum Chelsea.
It was a good performance. We dominated play. We created a lot of chances in the first half, just that we were wasteful. They had an early goal, and I think that destabilized our game plan a bit, because boys got anxious and they wanted to equalize. So they ended, making a lot of mistakes, squandering all the chances. Actually, we started with a 1-4-3-3 shape. Then when we got to a time, we realized that we wanted the winning goal. So we changed, to the 1-4-4-2, shape. Unfortunately, we didn't find the second goal, and I think that is what happened.
Is it worrying for you that when you look at the league table and the position of the team, is it worrying for you that you are not picking the wins, especially at home, for most of them, and drawing?
It is quite worrying, but I think we'll bounce back. But I've just come and I've seen a lot of things, taking the strengths and weaknesses of the team into consideration. So I'm going to work on that, and I believe we'll come back strongly.
We started very well. Second minute we score, as I told you before. We came here to win, to get 3 points, but we are playing with a good team. 11 Wonders is a good team. They press us last 20 minutes first half. Even if we are telling the players and our defense to come up, to push up, it was not so easy to come up, and it's okay, it can happen. Second half, I think they have probably one chance. We have 2 or 3 chances also. So I can accept, but if any team need to win, it will be good for us.
Is it a result that gives you confidence and some sort of momentum going into the next games that you've got?
We are in a good moment, so players need to be confident all the time. Motivation need to be there, because we are not losing for, I don't know, but maybe 8 or 9 matches we are not losing. So we are counting points for our table, for us to be stable on the table. But anyways, we want to play better. We want to give good matches, good for our supporters, and I hope next week we can get 3 points and give some happiness to our supporters.
Next week is against Karela. All the best in that one. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you see me with this beautiful smile, it's because I am imagining a gender-equal world. A world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination. A world that is diverse yet equitable and inclusive. A world where difference is valued and celebrated. Together, we can forge women's equality. Collectively, we can all break the bias. Joining us today as we go hard on women's issues and how far we've come as a country, just on the back of the Independence Day that we celebrated, how far we've come as a country and how much more we can do for our women, our mothers, our sisters, our wives, our girlfriends, All in all, one of my guests is staring at me right now. Anyway, joining us for the conversation, Dr. Juliet Ohiming Ntiamwa, an environmental engineer in the United States. We also have Awo Idam, Executive Director, Child Online Africa. There's Enyonam Manye, CEO, the Ghanaian farmer. And boy, are we going to have a lot to talk about. We also have Selassie Irabna Chega, Executive Director, Human Rights Advocacy Center. All of them join the conversation. Enyonam is here in the studio, all the others via Zoom. Ladies, thank you so much for joining the conversation, and happy International Women's Day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just want to ensure that everyone is on board. Can you, if you can hear me, can you all say, break the bias?
Break the bias.
Break the bias. Break the bias.
Okay, so we have everyone on board. Let me start with you, Dr. Ntiamwa. As an environmental scientist, I'm sure there's a lot that you can say in these times, where we're headed, global warming and all of that. But I want us to start from the standpoint of what we're celebrating today, women. We've come a long way. I was mentioning earlier in the course of the news review, from women not being able to even exercise the franchise in certain countries, not being counted, not being able to drive, having to be escorted. I mean, I know the picture, you're getting the picture. But when you look at today's woman compared to, let's say, 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, in Ghana and beyond, what are some of the monumental gains that we've seen that we should be celebrating on a day like this?
Okay, thank you for having me on this August occasion to talk about women and the gains we've made over the years. I think that, if we'll all be honest, when we look at our communities or even in our schools, we see that programs that, hitherto did not have women pursuing. And, for someone in the sciences, I can say that, when I was even in KNUST between 2008 to 2012, in the Department of Environmental Science, we didn't have any woman, let's say, full lecturer or senior lecturer, right, in our department. But now we have one. Now it's not, let's say, a number that we are proud of. We wish there were more, but at least there is some improvement. And I think by extension, this is not different in other sciences. Now we have, more women or more young ladies enrolling in science and engineering programs than before. So these are areas where we can see, obvious gains, right? Now, if your daughter tells you she wants to do engineering or she wants to do the sciences, or even that she wants to even finish university, it's not so much a shock, or it's not so much of a surprise. So these are areas where I can say that we've made gains, in our education system. When we look at areas of leadership, of course, we've seen, some increase in women representation, but of course, the numbers are still not encouraging and a lot more needs to be done. But we'll pause here and celebrate the gains.
Beautiful way to set the tone for the conversation. Let me get to Selassie, and Executive Director, of course, Human Rights Advocacy. For you, Selassie, what are the standout points, if I asked you, within the last few decades that you have seen women achieve, those feats that you feel are worthy of celebration? For me, in this country, I've seen a few more. The statistics are very imbalanced when you look at women, CEOs, COOs, CFOs, and all of that. I do know we have the statistics, but I have seen some advancement, and these are things that I celebrate, though they are not enough. For you, what are the standout things that you celebrate in Ghana and beyond?
Thank you for having me. on this important day. I think for Ghana, we have such a huge informal sector, especially when it comes to business. And I find that something that has pleased me recently is seeing more women mates in the trotros, because that has characteristically been a male-dominated industry. We don't think of it as an industry per se, but that's one of the things that I find encouraging. There's also the fact that, like Dr. Juliet said, more young girls are getting into STEM education, and the fact that we can have these conversations where girls are encouraged to pursue the sciences and maths and become engineers. When I was younger, these things weren't happening. There was still I remember there used to be this public service video that was played on GTV, send your girl child to school. There was still that debate happening.
Send your girl child to school.
Exactly. There was still that debate about the significance of sending girls to school in the first place. But we find that increasingly, even the fact that we are sitting here as women in these positions is an achievement that I think is important we celebrate.
Okay, let's come to Enyonam, who is right here in the studio. And let me find out from you very quickly, Enyo. So for you, women, in the course of all of this, and I know you will definitely be veering into agriculture.
Of course.
And what women are doing there.
Right.
What are some of the things we ought to be celebrating, looking at and saying, go our women in Ghana and beyond?
Thank you very much. Our women are doing extremely a lot. Some time past, when agriculture is mentioned, it is our fathers, it is the men. And I see my mother cook a meal from the house. She would either, carry me to take it to the farm and go and give it to my dad and brothers, or I would escort her, whilst I'm carrying the water, she's holding the meal, and then we go together and serve them. But in recent times, women have dared themselves to become farmers. And so when you watched my interviews, I interviewed some women in Ada who are into clam business, clam production, that day that we enjoy. When you get to the Sogakope Bridge, you see women carrying that day. It's not just the men who go to harvest, but when you go to Ada, there's a riverside called, I've forgotten the name, but the women they go diving.
They dive as well?
Of course. The women go diving themselves to harvest the clam. And that is very, very insightful and interesting. We have women, Fafape, who is in somewhere East Legon. She's the mushroom queen. She has a big
Fafape. Yes. She is the mushroom queen.
Thank you very much. She has a big mushroom farm, and she's doing extremely well. We have Abeta of Agri House Foundation, who recently brought together over 50 queen mothers who are into agriculture in their various regions. So these stories is something worth celebrating. It is something worth encouraging, that we no longer sit home and just cook the meal and go serve you the men in the farm, but we equally carry the hose with you. Go whilst you are working on 1 acre, we are equally working on 1 acre. And these stories are worth celebrating. So I'm happy, I'm excited that I'm chatting this part. I am empowering young women that, listen, if you have completed JSS, SHS, or even university, and you haven't got an office work, we all can be like you. I mean, wearing the tie. Let's get into the field and produce the food for you to cook.
You just had to take a dig at me there. No, but not all of us definitely can. And one thing we often mistake, we tend to be, especially in our part of the world, we tend to be skewed more towards doing this. Maybe, I never thought I'd be doing this anyway, but we tend to be skewed more towards donning a nice suit and a tie and, sitting, pencil pushing, if you like. But the Makola woman, okay, what we often miss as young people, some Makola women make much more in a day than probably I would make in a month.
Exactly.
That's a reality.
Exactly.
So sometimes we push certain things away. Oh, this one, dear. But it takes getting into it.
Exactly.
Some farmers are making, I know women carpenters, who are into furniture making and stuff, who are making mind-blowing, raking in mind-blowing revenue. And I'm here, sitting here. I'm not saying I'm a pauper or that I am, but I'm just saying that that picture, there's a whole lot more to it. And it's not just sitting here maybe with a suit and tie.
No, you should go to the northern. I just came back from the northern region a few weeks ago, and I met Tiyumba women. You know, it's a shea butter processing center, and it's all women sitting down, going through all this process. And I know you use shea butter. At the end of the day, yes, these women go to the farm, pick the shea nuts one after the other, carry it to the center, and go through the entire go through the entire process before you have your finished shea butter that you use back home. So women are pushing the barriers now. We are breaking the bias. We are occupying certain spaces. You mentioned COOs, CEOs, Director Generals, the World Trade Organization. We have a woman who is the Director General. So it means that we are breaking the bias. We are occupying those spaces that formerly we were not.
Right.
Yes.
Not to mention the fact that in many countries, I mean, Ethiopia has its own situation in terms of women representation in their parliament. If I'm not mistaken, about 50% or more. We have New Zealand with a female leader, some of the Scandinavian countries. We have Croatia, you know, we've had Liberia and then in Ethiopia as well. I think the PM, not the PM, the other lady, I've forgotten her full name, but interesting strides. And again, when it comes to agriculture, we often fail to see that women are actually the backbone of our agriculture.
Exactly.
All the other things that in many parts of the country, especially up north, women are the ones farming, doing certain things. They are part of the conveyor belt of how we get our foodstuff in here. So there will be a whole lot more to talk about in respect of that. But let me come to our item, Executive Director, Child Online Africa. I'd like to ask you a pointed question based on our history as a country. We've celebrated 65 years. I don't want to know how old you are. That wouldn't be fair to put you on the spot. But looking at what you saw, let's say in Ghana, growing up, in terms of women matters, and when you consider them today, what do you think has changed that we ought to be celebrating?
Right. Good morning to your viewers, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm surprised you have decided to domesticate my issue. And
we can start from here and broaden it.
To globalize it.
Exactly.
You know? But then I am not going to take it directly from where you've given me, but then I will take it from the technology point of view. We used to be at a stage where very little is said of science and technology as far as women are concerned. But then way back, I think around 1996, thereabout, when the STEM education has become the thing of attraction, most women and girls are encouraged to engage in such sector. So now, from there and now, we could see a number of women who are in technology, a number of women who are in fintech, a number of women who are in innovation, developing concepts for sanitary pad and what have you. But then when we come to the issue again of women and their participation, I don't think we're doing quite well when it comes to our parliament, because we still have recording low numbers in parliament. And I would have wished that by now we are par with Ethiopia, like you rightly cited. But then unfortunately, we aren't there. And then again, we don't just want the women, in as much as we want the representation, we want them to be proactive and be representing women and girls' voices in parliament. So I am sad to say that even though we've achieved a lot, so to speak, we are still not there yet. And I am so sad on this day to tell you that we still have 20% import tax levy on sanitary pad, which is something very fundamental that a young girl needs to use. So that is why I am not so enthused about the celebration on this day, because we are indirectly perpetuating the bias against girls and women.
Wow. What a way to start off the premise there, and the taxation on sanitary pads and all that. Is it a no-brainer? I mean, is it something that you would urge that we immediately start, policies on to get rid of?
In fact, we have been talking about this way back 2015. Politicians have made commitments in one way or the other. Some of them have stated it in their manifestos. And the NPP government did that. And as of now, 2 years from the time it was mentioned in the manifesto, we haven't seen a thing happen. And we're putting up one district, one factory. None of these are focused on that particular product.
Right.
We are producing cotton in the north. Can't we just channel that rightly if we are really into the issue? So for me, that is the problem. We are celebrating the day, but it's not enough to celebrate the day when we cannot impact the lives of young people and women as we have them.
Interesting dynamics. Now let's get into something else that none of us can avoid. And we've spoken about women in agriculture, we've spoken about women in education, STEM, if you like. We've spoken about women doing different things and the many handicaps you face. But let's start looking at some of the biases. Today, as we have that global theme, break the bias, we'd like to see the areas where women are facing the stiffest forms of bias and what we can do about them, from the workplace to even the nucleus of society, the home. I'll start with you, Doc, on this bit. Where do you feel the most, from where you sit, that you see the greatest biases personally against you and against women you know? And what do you feel we should be doing? Where should we be inching towards in dealing with some of those issues?
Okay, thank you. So I think when we talk about bias, I would expect any woman on this panel and even any woman watching us, must have experienced it one way or the other. Personally, I think where I've seen, bias, really in my face, if I should say, has been in the area of my career development, being it at a university and also even at work. Wow. I remember when I had just finished KNUST, right? I was working, in the oil and gas industry, and a former classmate, called and said, "Hey, Julia, I'm looking for, opportunity in your area." And I know that I had gotten that opportunity, because I had finished with first class from KNUST, because that was how I got it. And I told my friend that, there was a position here, but, our junior classmates, so and so will be coming in, based on merit. And he just, fled and said, as for the department, they just give the opportunities to the women. And I paused and I said, "Hey, who was the best student in our class?" He said, "You." I was like, "Okay, who is the best student in, this other class that this girl is coming to work here?" He mentioned the girl's name. I was like, "Okay, so say they give the opportunities to the best students."
Wow.
Don't just say they give the opportunities to the women, as if I'm not deserving, but you agreed I was the best student in our class, so would say they give to the best students. So these are some of the examples of how bias shows itself. I remember in the workplace too, I was leading what we call toolbox talks. So toolbox talks is when early in the morning, let's say around 6 a.m., you meet all the operators on the yard and you talk about some safety issues and all of that. I always did my research, and I was the only female in, among about 150 men at a time. And I would go through the safety topic for the day and everything. And like I said, I do my research and try to do a good job. So I was getting good feedback from the people. Right. And my boss was also hearing the good feedback. Guess what one colleague said to me one day?
Tell me.
"Juliet, is it true you're doing a very good job or you're just dazzling them with your features?"
How did that hit you when that colleague asked that?
It really hit me bad. I think I just froze. I couldn't really believe that he said that to me. And this was just, 2014, right? So not too long ago.
Right.
And people have these perceptions about women in our society. So if you are doing a good job, or if you are a woman rising through the ranks, the immediate thought that comes to someone's mind is, who is she sleeping with? Who is sponsoring her? These are biases that are still persistent, that we've not eliminated in our society.
And if I may just interject, usually when you see a woman, and we see them now across the tech world and all of that, areas where maybe even a few decades ago, you wouldn't see a lot of women, though it's still a very small number. And immediately, oh, this one, she must have done something. That's the rhetoric. That's what you would usually hear. And that is much of a problem, isn't it? Because it's not so much about policies, it's about the thinking of the ordinary person on the streets here. And that will take time to eradicate.
Exactly. And we hope that through conversations like this, people become more aware and, try to get rid of some of these biases. Yeah, so that has been some of my very,
right.
I would say,
your brushes with bias. Let me come to Awo. For you, what core areas, and I would like to know, even growing up, I know in school and all of that, sometimes even at home, in the nuclear setting, you would see certain things. I have friends who have told me that their siblings who are male, and I know this might be tricky, were given more educational opportunities, taken to certain places that they were not given opportunities to go to when they were in fact better than the boys. So all of these things are in there. But what have been the biases that you have faced growing up? And what do you think, for example, about affirmative action when it comes to areas where women are lagging behind?
Again, thank you. Biases that I faced growing up, I don't think I have much to share in that respect.
Okay.
Because I'm the only girl among boys. And I recall we had a schedule, we had a timetable designed by my mom. So everybody does the cooking. And in fact, when we are done cooking, my brothers will scale you, score you as to what you have done. Sometimes they will tell you the rice is too hard. My brother did better and all. And I felt those were fair judgments. And I think I'm growing up being a mother of boys now. I'm growing up raising my boys in that kind of light, because I really don't perceive anything to be a woman's role, nor another to be a man's role. Whatever you want to do, you pursue that. When it comes to the issue of affirmative action, I'm not an authority in that area, but the little I have done in terms of ways to stopping violence against girls in schools, which translates into womanhood and all of that, I feel that we're trying to implement the thing in abstract. I am of the view that before we implement such interventions, it will be appropriate for us to come down to the grassroots. There are a number of young women who are not equipped as the elite. But then as the conversation is taking place at the higher level, where those places are being filled. But unfortunately, because they haven't tackled it from the bottom up, it's difficult for those women to bring up the lower level ones to their level. Sometimes it becomes even a competition at their level to get other women involved. So, which is why some of the initiatives we have now, which are prone to encouraging young girls to take part in ICT and all of that, I applaud them a lot. But as to how sustainable they are, is one thing we need to interrogate, because most often when we have money from donors to undertake an intervention, yes, we utilize those funds. Once the fund is over, there's nothing like transition or sustainability plan into the project. So our local funds are not able to sustain the programs. And those programs die off. We made mention of Send Your Girl Child to School. That was a fantastic program. But it got exhausted along the line. Another one came for another 5 years from USAID. Then when that one was done, nothing else goes on now with girls' empowerment or girls' education. And we feel that we even have equal numbers, which is not the reality. We still have young girls dropping out of school due to pregnancy and other issues. We have young girls dropping out of school because of online abuses, because maybe their images are online, which makes it difficult for them to now show their faces in public. We have a lot of women in professional settings who are being harassed every now and then. My sister just shared one. There are quite a number of them. Once you are in a male-dominated regime or setup, it's very likely you are seen to be that gendered person who is supposed to be tormented in one way or the other, which should not be the case. So for me, those prejudices that are held against women or girls should be tactfully handled such that it will not go a long way to affecting the whole agenda of gender equality at the end of the day. And that will only take a concerted effort from us as individuals, from the community, from government, and then from other decision makers.
Right. And poignant the way you paint the picture, and I would say fortunate the sort of background you had, because in other instances it would have been the girl doing all the cooking, and the boys wouldn't have been brought into the picture at all. But Selassie, for you, especially in the area where you work, human rights advocacy, where have you seen the most prejudice personally and in relating to other women with human rights issues? Where do you see the most prejudice against women in that context?
Thank you. For me, I had an upbringing that was quite similar to the way Awo was raised. Everybody did work at home. Everybody did everything. And so there wasn't that discrimination or bias. But I have found that in stepping out of my home into society, the biases that I have faced were with reference to my opinions and having strong opinions. I've had people literally tell me that your husband will suffer with the way Oba ding and like statements such as that. And I wasn't raised to cower in the face of diverse opinions. I was raised to express myself and to research my thoughts and express them. So that for me was a little bit of a shock going out into society. And I find in our work, that women, and this is something that I have also experienced, there's still the bias around men's ownership of women's bodies and their lives. There's still a lot of that where a man approaches a woman he doesn't even know and feels like he can enter her personal space and touch her, and there's not that awareness that that's a violation of a woman's rights. There's not that awareness that the things that men will not do to each other, or even the things that they would do to themselves, you still have to respect a person's boundaries. I also find that amongst ourselves as women, there's that bias, there are those biases that we have against each other. I remember this experience I had in a trotro one time. There was traffic at an intersection, and one of the women said, as in with reference to the police service personnel directing the traffic, that if you go and check it, there's this much traffic because it's a woman. And
in other words, she's not capable, and that's why we're facing the circumstances we're facing. That was the suggestion.
Exactly. And we have that a lot amongst ourselves as women. And I think that fundamentally there's, like Awo mentioned, we had these really good programs that were encouraging girls to go to school and expand themselves and be something beyond just staying at home. But we find that fundamentally that idea that a woman's place is in the kitchen, that a woman cannot be in the political space or in the organizational or tech space, is so ingrained in us and in the people that are raising the next generation of women that there has to be a core mindset shift. That's what I think.
And you've mentioned some very important things. But Enyo, as I come to you in the studio, how real is that for you? You know, you're doing what you're doing, the sphere you operate in, agriculture. Somehow men feel it's a macho thing, it's a man thing. What sort of discrimination have you faced in here? And have people ever made you feel, you're a woman, what are you doing in this industry? Share your story with us.
Right, so interesting. You know that more than half of Ghana's agriculture space, the labor force is made of women.
Like I mentioned earlier.
And 70% of the Ghana food stock produced are largely produced by women. Last year, the 2021 award, we had about 37 women being awarded as against a total number of 165. I get people, I think in some of the regions I've visited, I got one gentleman pulling me aside and saying, background your day. I said I did PR journalism. Say, so who you then wa? Me I say, I am here to project the works of farmers. And so that is what I am doing. And I have my own little thing I'm doing as well. Can you imagine I paid someone to prepare a place for me to go into snail farming until date? The carpenter consumed or spent my money and has still not put up the structure. The last time I caught up with him, he said, oh, madam, do you think if it's a man? Be honest with me.
So sometimes even the way they, and you know, this brings to mind a bit of a story. A friend told me once that she had employed an artisan to come and do something for her in her home. I think a carpenter, I think it was a plumber. And this man comes in, he's doing his work, yes. She gets the feeling that, and she's very on top of some of these matters, how much things are sold for out there. But he seems to think she doesn't know. And so he wants to overcharge her. But I think what really rubbed her the wrong way was the fact that gentleman at a point just walks into her fridge, takes out a bottle of chilled water, no permission sought, takes out some food, and she comes out, sees him, and she's like, I mean, in her mind, she's thinking,
what's going on?
What the heck? And he feels, oh, you're a woman. There's no man in the house, so I am. That's the feeling.
Yes.
I guess that's the feeling, and I wouldn't tolerate that. So obviously, you shouldn't think that a woman would.
So he had charged me money. I have paid for the services.
Right.
And I asked him, where is the structure I needed to expand my snail farming? And all he could tell me was that I'm busy working for other people, so relax, it will be your turn. And I said, that was not the agreement. So I keep hearing people call me on phone every time, and they ask me, so what inspired you? It looks as if me going into agriculture or me going into farming is so strange. But that should not be anything strange.
Right.
It's a usual vocation that anybody gets involved in. And so that is where my passion has led me, and I'm doing to the best of my knowledge.
Has some of those, or have some of those interactions, you know, impacted you negatively? You know, got you thinking again that, am I really in the right sphere? Have any doubts been sowed in your mind on the back of some of these encounters, like the one with the man, oh, your background is PR. What are you doing here? I mean, we ought to talk about them, because in the end, some people even don't mean ill, but the things they say work on the minds of the women they speak to. Has that impacted you negatively in any way?
Of course it has. I must be honest, because the fact that you have to hire the services of cameramen, equipment, transportation, paying for hotels, and taking crew along to go and produce the content. And people call you, instead of them giving you thumbs up, instead of them sharing messages to encourage you, and he's asking, what are you doing here? What benefit are you? So what are you getting? So it means that the resources I'm using to project the works of people within this sector, including myself, it means that I'm wasting my money, or I'm wasting my resources. And the painful part is when such content are on television and even getting sponsorship is hard. It means that...
Is it harder because you're a woman? Do you feel sometimes even getting sponsorship, breaking into the corporate world, doing certain things, it's harder because you're a woman?
Well, it could be 50-50 from that angle. At times you take proposals, you know, to go and have discussions with marketing managers or CEOs, and it tells a different story. So at times you sit back and you wonder, so how do I go about it? Because if you should go, it's a man-to-man talk. But when a lady goes, the story becomes different. So at times it's very hard. It's extremely difficult for me to even step out there to go, take out proposals, seeking for sponsorship, or at times you go to the field. And I think the other day I almost drowned somewhere in Asamankese. There was a river, and I had to cross. The men were crossing. I had to cross. So I asked someone, and he said, so cross. And by the time I tried jumping, I almost fell into, you know, the stream.
Wow.
Yes, so some of the things.
So we're basically saying you think you can do what a man can do, so do it and let's see.
Jump and let's go. So will be a so jump. I'm like, really, you have to help me because this is difficult for me, but I can't stop. I can put an end to it because we need to know about the stories of these farmers and what they are doing. How best it is out of these documentaries that stakeholders, both local, international organizations that have funding to help the agri space, get to know what is going wrong, where we can strengthen our policies, and where we can implement what. But when I am trying, I recently on a motorbike to some of the farm, I crashed my camera, the lens.
Right.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's expensive.
Thank you very much. I crashed it. But here I am. If I have the chance to go on the field again, I'll wear my Wellington boot and I'm off. So it is, the bias is there. You are helping, but the stories or some of the feedbacks are so discouraging, it's so disheartening. But would you stop? We can't. If we want to break the bias, we have to look beyond this, you know, commentaries and still proceed.
We definitely have to look beyond them. And as I come back to you, Dr. Ntiamwa, I am going to ask some questions that are going to be very personal in a way, but we ought to put them out there because from personal experience, I noticed that a lot of people take certain things for granted. I'm talking about sexual harassment. Was it Enyonam? No, not Enyonam. Was it Selassie who was talking about men getting into women's space and feeling, you know, I have every right to do so and all of that. No permission. It's okay. I'm your co-worker. I can hug you, whatever I feel like. Let's talk about sexual harassment issues and what exactly you face. The things that you wouldn't want to happen, but somehow people think, men think it is normal to do these things. And maybe link it, I'll come to you, Enyonam, on the bit about even seeking sponsorship, whether sometimes people want to take advantage of some of these things. But let's start with you, at Doc.
When we talk about sexual harassment, you know, it can be verbal, it can, you know, it might not always be about touching. But, you know, sometimes words, somebody can look at you from top to down and say, oh, you look sweet or something.
Basically ogling you. You can tell you are like a piece of meat and they are just looking at you.
Yes. So all those things, I think sometimes we don't really put a lot of emphasis on that, but it happens a lot. You know, women just hear things at the workplace or in schools, you know, just because somebody feels that they can just make any comment at all. So those things go a long way to really put a lot of pressure on you when, let's say, you're even trying to dress up for work or even dress up. You think about, you know, what are people going to say? Will this attract somebody to, you know, say something or even touch me? But in actual sense, you know, how I dress should not, you know, should not encourage you to do anything to me or should not encourage you to touch me anyhow or say anything to me. But it's something, you know, we've had to ask ourselves or we have to take into consideration before we step out. Personally, I've already shared some comments, that I've seen at the workplace. In Trotro, when I was in Ghana, I remember there was a time I was sitting in Trotro and I just felt this, movement on my lap. And I had my bag on my lap. So I thought, okay, maybe it's my phone vibrating or something. So I checked my bag and I brought my phone out and it was not, vibrating or nobody was calling me. And then I put it back in and then I felt the movement again. Long story short, I lifted my bag and then the guy sitting next to me had his hand on my lap. And I mean,
he had his hand on your lap.
Mm-hmm. This happened to me in Trotro. And I looked at him and I was shocked. I was like, what the heck?
I'm sure you were shocked, totally shocked.
I was very shocked. And, he said, oh, sorry. And I was like, wow, somebody could just do this. And others or other women have even suffered worse, scenarios. In our workplaces, I think one of the things that I want to highlight is we mostly hear women, I think at least we've had a friend or two whose maybe boss has made advances at her. And if, she didn't succumb, probably suffered job loss, right? In our schools or in our universities, we have professors or lecturers, requesting for sex and then, in return for a good grade. And
that is one of the worst situations because you have someone who is up there and you are down there and you know that this person can impact your academic record. It's a very tricky, it's like being caught between the devil and the deep blue sea.
Mm-hmm. And my concern with all of this, especially for workplace and even in schools is we don't really have any channel of reporting.
Yeah.
There is no policy. I mean, you go to companies and they have maybe environment, health and safety policy printed on the wall,
right?
Or, several policies, but companies or even institutions don't have any reporting channel. So if you're a woman and you go through this, you go and chat about it with your friends and ask them, what do I do? Yeah. And some say, okay, maybe find another job or something. If you go to any police station to say, oh, my boss is trying to do this to me, like they'll laugh at you.
Yeah.
Right? So we really need policies at the workplace, in schools that protect women and even maybe by extension men, anybody in a lower rank who suffers
in a vulnerable position, basically.
Yes, any form of sexual harassment. Thank you.
Very interesting, and you've segued into an area that I was just about to get into because that's another bit. You go through, and thankfully here, our case is different at the multimedia group, but you go to other entities and they have practically nothing. There's nothing. It's free for all, And I'll just share the story. A friend told me something some time back that left me shaken, even as a man. She had been told to go to this man, elderly man, old enough to be close to being her grandfather. Respectable man in this country. And she was going there because she was working on a project and needed some funding. She gets into this man's office thinking everything is okay. And all of a sudden, the man is staring at her like, I don't want to sound old, but the way he's looking at her, he's even telling her to turn around 360 degrees and all of that. Then she realizes that the place, he uses fingerprint to open his door. In other words, there's no means of escape. And the man is approaching her and he's doing this and that. So ultimately, she thought quickly and just realized, oh, let me play along with him. So she does it. She agrees to meet him somewhere on a set day. Once she got out of the office, that was it. But we see it so often. So as I come to you, Selassie, I'm sure in your line of work as well, you get to see some of these things. Do you have any personal experiences to share? And what more do you feel we should be doing in terms of regulating the workplace when it comes to sexual harassment?
Unfortunately, I have way too many stories of this to share. I've had experiences with men, and there's this thing that happens so often with men where they say, I want to be your friend and you should be nicer, you never know. And it's almost like a manipulative, compulsive way to get you to, I don't know, to acquiesce. And it happens way too often where at work they say, oh, it was just a joke, and yet it was sexually inappropriate. I remember when I was working in my early 20s, I actually used to, on my way home when I was walking along the street, I actually used to make sure that I could find weapons that I could use in case I was attacked. Because
Weapons? Wow. It was that bad?
Yeah, along the street, just to feel safe, that if something happens, if someone tries to grab me, because I've had instances where I'll be walking along the pavement and then men will try to grab me, so I started walking on the street. It just feels like at every turn you are supposed to be protecting yourself in a society where you're supposed to be able to move about freely. And like Dr. Juliet said, it's too difficult for women to be able to report these things. It's too difficult for women to find support in instances like this, even from our fellow women. When these things happen in our homes, for instance, there are too many cases that we get, because we have a human rights clinic, there are too many instances where people say, oh, this is a family matter, we'll settle this at home. And yet, a person has been traumatized, has been sexually harassed, and these have psychosocial impacts. They leave lasting traumas. And I believe that we need to be more proactive and more vigilant in providing young girls and women with information about what the law says, about their rights, about what the resources are. But also in our schools and in our workplaces, there has to be policy that mandates that there are sexual harassment policies and organizations, that there are school counselors, there are people that girls can talk to. The society needs to emphasize the fact that women are equal human beings in society and need to be made to feel safe. It's unacceptable that women need to be conscious of how they dress and what they say and where they are at all times. Men don't have to deal with that.
Let me come to you, Awo. And before I take you on to another story, just very briefly came to mind. And I'm sharing it because this time I'm coming home to the media. Many years ago when I was on radio, and this story I'll never forget, I did this simply to prevent that young lady from getting into something she didn't want. Someone who was assisting me as an intern on one of my shows came to me and said, I have a friend. She wants to join your show. Actually, she went to this other media entity and wanted to be on a certain show. But the gentleman who is on the show made it clear to her that, yes, he could get her in, but he wanted to bet her first. So can you help her? I said, bring her, add her to the team. That was it. I just wanted to avoid the situation where this person would have taken advantage of her. And it is happening. It is true and it is out there. So as I come to you, Awo, on this self-same subject, what does it mean to you, the fact that in most workplaces, I mean, this is so rife, it's so rampant, and what would you like to see in 2022 being done to push this thing away when it comes to sexual harassment against women?
Okay, thank you again. In my line of work, I feel that sometimes by virtue of where you work and the position you hold predisposes you to an abuse, a form of abuse. And I'm taking into the digital space, online abuse. So your online presence becomes an avenue for you to be abused or for you to be taken for granted. And if cyber abuse is anything to go by, it means that women are disrespected more, or there's so much disrespect towards women online because men feel that women have lesser values compared to them. And by that, they find a way of silencing them. So for me, going forward in 2022, as we mark this day, I would want to see a proactive action in a form of a research strategy, which is looking at collecting the trends of abuse of women online and finding ways of addressing them. Secondly, have in place flag points where people can easily touch and report. And mind you, it's not just a system of saying that we have a hotline or helpline in place, but these helplines should be designed in such a way that someone with a low digital literacy skills should also be able to report an incident. And this incident should be taken on board seriously for action to addressing them. Until that is done, we will have very little women speaking up, especially now that we are in an era where digitalization has become the order of the day.
Right.
We'll have less women's voices online, but we want to see more women expressing themselves. We don't want women to be silenced. We don't want women to be blocking people here and there. We don't want women to be logging out of spaces just because they feel harassed in one way or the other. So those, there are a number of women, again, who are more or less, I'll call them misogyny enablers. So they encourage other women to abuse fellow women without knowing. I don't know if it's without knowing or it's just by virtue of the fact that they gain to laugh or they want the downfall of the other woman. I don't know how to analyze that, but it's a trend we've also observed. So some women who are in leadership positions should be tactful enough not to be enabling abuse against other women.
Right. Let me come into the studio. So I was going to, and I've not forgotten, have any of these people who have come on board to sponsor you or who were going to come on board ever, have you had any such situation where these people are basically telling you, okay, I'm willing to invest in what you're doing, but something must happen?
Well,
does that happen? And is it dehumanizing if that has ever happened to you?
I think I remember, was it 2 years ago? I have 2 television shows, actually. There is Business Trends and then The Ghanaian Farmer. So it was Business Trends. I approached a top executive whom I just finished interviewing, and I told him, listen, I think from what your company stands to do in the corporate sector, we have something in common. So why don't you project your works and project on my platform in return for some funding? And he told me, oh, I like your concept.
He was excited.
Yes, I like your concept. You're actually doing well. But you have to do what your colleagues do so that you can get the funding as soon as possible.
That's what he told you?
Oh, yes.
You have to do what your colleagues do?
Yes.
This person must have a lot of experience.
So I asked him, Honorable, what are my colleagues doing? He says, don't ask me to tell you. Just go and think about it. If you are ready, give me a call today, tomorrow. Any day you are ready, I will be ready for you. So that you meet
I might be looking for trouble for you here, but you just said honorable. Is this person a member of parliament?
Oh, he used to be. He's a public, a public person. Okay,
wow.
He's a public person, yes. So he says, so yes, I'm interested. It's a nice concept, but you have to do what your colleagues do so that we can get this done and over with. So I left and I never went back. Anytime once in a while we talk, he said, as for you, with the radio. So you didn't come back? I said, no, it's okay. I'll find ways and means to go about it. So that's what I was told. And so I didn't go back. So I managed to find other ways of sustaining the show. And so I have heard the stories. Just yesterday, I was traveling to Akosombo to a farm. I took a picture on the Adomi Bridge and posted on my status. And there is this gentleman in the US who actually called me for farming-related matters, how to help him, get some people or work with some people. And his first comment was, is that you? I said, yes. The follow-up comment was, I have spoken to you on phone and I imagined that you're pretty, but I didn't know you are this extra pretty. And I'm like, what do you mean by?
I would have taken that as an insult. How did you take it?
I just said, I see. At times I have my way of handling things. You see, if my outburst didn't come right, you would rather feel offended that I'm being disrespected. Oh, when your name doesn't respect, when your name does. So I just read the comment, I smiled. The farmer who I was going with said, what's happening? I said, just imagine this. He saw them, was like, really? what is the meaning of this? He didn't imagine you are this pretty. And so when I come to Ghana, I'd like to meet you. I said, I see.
Then no,
So as for these comments, at times it make you, so I because you've seen my videos on YouTube.
Right.
And that's how you contacted me. So when you tell me, I imagine you were pretty, but I didn't imagine you were this pretty. What are you saying then? What are you implying? Does it mean it's ugly women who do agriculture, or you didn't expect a fine girl to do agric? I mean, I hear this all the time, my dear. I just brush it off. It's as if I didn't hear anybody making such comments, and I proceed to the conversation, the reason why we are talking, or the reason why we are here. So these things, it makes you feel some way. If I say that it doesn't dehumanize me, it's a lie.
It dehumanizes you.
Does.
It makes you feel less human.
Yes, it does. But every time I try to encourage myself, and it's the regular thing. Just ignore it. And
There's something yesterday I found trending on Twitter in a certain thread. It was about, so someone had asked a lady out, and she had come together with another lady. And this person was suggesting that, oh, I would ignore the lady I asked out and go with the other lady. But it was interesting because another lady came and posted, and she also got bashing. But she posted that it could also be that, especially as a first time out with the person, for the person's own security, she's going with backup, if you like, so that the person would not, this man would not think that he is alone with her and he can do something of the sort. Of course, there were people talking about the fact that then she could have gone with a man, or the person could have been sitting on another table because it's a public place. But I guess all of these feed into the conversation. Is that something you would do? If you didn't trust, let's say, a man you were going out with, let's say a blind date, would you go with someone else? Just for the sake of safety?
I would not go with someone else, but I make sure wherever it is we are going to meet, it's a public place. There are a lot of people there. So mostly, I mean, I've gone on a few blind dates. But if I go, before I get to see the person I'm going to meet, I make sure I sit a bit distance, okay? So when you come, you will surely call, because we haven't seen in person yet.
Yes.
You will call. So I get to see who the person is, how you're looking like, your appearance. If it works for me, I get closer. If it doesn't, I find a way to run before anything happens.
Sharp.
Yes. So,
right.
It's not necessarily for you to take someone with you, but you should find a public place where there are a lot of people. In a restaurant, in a mall, would he harm you there? No. So it's not really needed for you to.
Interesting. Let me come to Dr. Ntiamwa. So we've got to the point where I feel we should focus on the theme for this year's celebration and map the way forward as women, and I am an associate today. So how do we break the bias? I'd like to start with Dr. Ntiamwa on the standpoint of boys' training or education, because in the end, you would also notice that boys grow up in families, and sometimes it is women who give them certain mindsets, boys don't do this at home, and all of that growing up. And then they grow up with certain mindsets, mentalities that are very different, difficult to break, because it's said that you can train a sapling, a growing plant, but once it grows to a certain point, there's nothing you can do unless break it. How do we break the bias? From you, I'd like to hear in terms of boys trading, so that they have that orientation, and what else you have to add.
Okay, so I think even on this panel, we heard from Salasi and Awo their experience of growing up, right? The fact that their parents made everyone do something. So, from that background, you don't have it in your mind that, oh, this is for the woman, this is for the man. That is something that is lacking in most homes. And it's something that we need to speak about and encourage more homes to have this gender roles eliminated. So if you have a boy and a girl in your home, share the chores, share the chores equally, and even rotate. So let's say if this week Akosia is sweeping, next week she'll be doing gardening whilst the brother is doing the sweeping. Rotate, share it equally among them. And I think that even from that, you'll be able to see that, okay, this one gravitates towards this, or this is, his or her preferred things to do in the house, and this one is gravitating towards this. So at the end of the day, the person both grow up not expecting only one person to be doing chores at home. And I think that when we look at the successes of women, in recent times, one of the key things that any successful woman would like to point out is the need for a supportive partner. So, and, a grown-up man cannot just become supportive if he was not trained to share chores, if he was not trained to do certain things at home. So, charity begins at home, as we say that. So we need to encourage more families to raise their children by not focusing on gender roles. And I think that's one thing that we need to do is that we need to, put things in the minds of our young boys that, hey, instead of, previously when we used to, I think parents used to tell boys that, oh, your wife will be doing this for you, and rather tell women that if you don't learn how to do this, your husband is going to suffer and all of that. Let's erase all of those sayings and replace it with things like, Kojo, if you don't learn how to do this, one day you'll be on your own, you'll not be able to do this for yourself. And the same thing, even for the girls, you don't tell the girl that if you don't do this, you'll not be able to keep a man or anything. The girl needs to learn to do it for herself first. The same thing for the boy. He needs to do it for himself first. So these are the deliberate, deliberate actions, deliberate words that we need to say at home to make sure that as they are growing up with a renewed mindset. They're not expecting their wives to, come back from work and do everything for them. They feel that they're also part of the home. They are creating a home with their partners.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, I think that is how we can take it from the beginning. And some mothers have done that. I think we've already heard it here.
Yeah.
And my in-law also did that for my husband. So he's very supportive. He does everything.
Awesome. Selassie, as I come to you, a quick thought came to mind. Some years back, I am at Sunday school and there's a girl crying, a baby, so to speak. I think she's 2.5, 3, but she's still a baby. I pick her up and I'm, cuddling her and all that. Then one of the parents, we were ending the session. A parent comes through, a man. He looks at me and says, hey, he had been observing me for a while, and he says, hey, Moyadio, me, I can't do this. Oh, I can't. The way you are, Sani, I would definitely the way you are taking care of her. And it struck me because he was a parent. I am not a biological parent yet. I was able to do that, and he, the parent, so you can imagine what he does in his house or how he would treat his children. But Selassie, so for you, how do we break the bias? What are the core areas to look at?
I think, like Dr. Juliet mentioned, and this is something that we try to do in our project interventions, because sometimes we skew our interventions too much towards the women and educating them, but then there are people who perpetrate these biases and these abuses, and so they also need to be educated. I watched a short documentary on Twitter some months back, and I stand to be corrected about the specific country, but I think it was in Kenya, and it was about gender-based violence. And they were talking to men in a community about abusing their wives, and these men were boldly stating that their mothers and their grandmothers had told them that sometimes a woman needs to be beaten when she's... And so we see that even from the very young age, how you raise the man determines how he views a woman, what he would do. And personally, my dad was a very hands-on father, right? And for him, he was raised by women. He was surrounded by women. And so his entire mindset in becoming a father was he wants to take care of his wife, his children. He wants to be. And so it really requires a very strong foundation. But the unfortunate thing is that some people don't have that foundation. So what do? We need to be able to renew their minds, as it were. And I think And to do that, to a certain degree, we need to expose men to the damage that is caused by abuse and these biases sometimes. They need to be in the same rooms as much as it is safe for the women to share those spaces with them. But they need to be aware that their actions and their words and their inactions even have consequences and have a certain effect. Now, women are not the same as men. We are different biologically and emotionally and all of these things. But women have great value in society. They have great value to men and to the society. And so men need to understand that when you limit what a woman can do, you're limiting yourself ultimately. You're limiting what your society can achieve. And I think that when we start to teach young men and even some of the older men these things, and we start to teach them the value of women, even outside of the fact that they are women, as human beings, right, that they have value. I think that those are some of the ways that we can start to break the biases. And also to teach women themselves that of their value and to teach them to speak up for themselves, because they also are impacted by these lessons that teach them that you are supposed to be quiet and don't share too strong opinions and don't your places in the kitchen. Women need to learn to stand up for themselves.
Right. Women need to learn to stand up for themselves. For you, Awo, what would you be looking at in terms of breaking the bias?
All right, so I would say that online abuse is damaging to the individual involved, the family, and the society or community at large. So in order for us to have the sanity and an enabling environment for the growth of the individual, and especially women and girls, it will be important for us to make online safety and digital literacy a lifestyle, so that when a young person or women are online and they are confronted with issues beyond them, they know what to do and where to go for help. The other thing I would say has to do with our platform providers, the online platform providers, not only the mobile networks, but other platform providers. It would be important for them to look at things from the human rights perspective. So having a design which takes into consideration people's abilities, people's maturation, people's special needs, just so the platform will be that inclusive enough to help support the growth and nurturing of the individual or the users of those platforms.
Right.
And to government, I would want government to go the extra mile by putting in place protective measures. And these protective measures should not be limited to just having one act which addresses one form of abuse, but the extra protection which will take into consideration the user's needs, and then again, make the service providers more accountable and responsible for the users. Just so when something happens, we know what to do and how to address them.
Okay.
So for me, those are the 3 pointers I'll have for way forward.
All right. I'll wrap in the studio with Enyonam. You get the final bite of the cherry. What would be for you what you want to see when it comes to breaking the bias? Today and beyond, what do you want to see on the national level and beyond?
Right, so I will take it from the agri sector, because
Okay.
I'll speak for my women in the agriculture space. Now, when it comes to breaking the bias in the agriculture space, I would request from government and other relevant stakeholders that we need to consider improving access to productive inputs, such as land, such as fertilizer, improved seeds, pesticide, the services of extension officers. As we speak, I was in the north, like I said, and it is clear that women cannot have access to land unless a man is the one leading the way. So we would use this day to wish all women Happy International Day, but the focus is that all women in agriculture, we are contributing our quota. As a result, these services should be improved. They should help us have quick access to our fertilizers. We should be able to walk to the chief or to any family head and request for a passport.
Like any man would do.
Thank you very much, like any man would do. So if you're out there and you have any form of support to push a woman or encourage a woman, empower a woman in agriculture, God bless you, and don't think twice before giving that support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies, for joining the conversation. Ladies without gentlemen. I'm the lone gentleman standing. But very important discussion on International Women's Day. And I think it's only fitting that as I wish you a happy International Women's Day, we cross our hands as we seek to break the bias. Yes, we break the bias. Dr. Juliet Ohiming-Ntiamwa is an environmental engineer in the United States. Our item is Executive Director, Child Online Africa. Enyona Manye, the very beautiful. Enyona Manye, CEO of the Ghanaian Farmer, and Selassie Irabna Chega, Executive Director, Human Rights Advocacy Center. Thank you so much for joining. Now, when we return, we'll go live to the Makola market as Michael Ashali speaks to women who wake up at dawn just to make ends meet. In fact, no need to waste time. Let's connect with Papani. So you take it away. What exactly is happening at Makola? Do walk us through what you have to share with us.
So I'll be speaking to some of the market women here. I have one market woman here who will tell us her name briefly. She has her son here, definitely telling you how she's much interested in making sure her son is educated and the hard work she puts into getting her goods also. So, Mami Patrick was saying.
Mabra.
Okay. Ante Mabra nti ene ye bisa se ma moye den na mo manage efie niama sanso baha be adwuma. How difficult is it?
Me sorry 3 o'clock e wo fie. Sorry ye aduane e de ma me ma no de obeka wo fie no na mafawe me dware no me siesie no bibia by 4 o'clock except me be fa car na me be krom. So ye be krom so I be shedwa o short time na bobe to say 7 and 7:30 so me siesie akora no ho na me ko school nti ekwan be fa so abeton ade abenye ska so be boa ofie ahwe enkwala no e ma ne se ye nkasa ye bre ese ye chen mema no e ma ne bre ofie kura chen e mema ese ma ne ye hard kura chen e mema no be so ra ma che utra kem kura e ma nko a ne ye tekem benya be ma be miensa pe ne wom nti e ma no so no ene ye dai so mutimi ye den mudi ma ye pa ne ma ne ye bre
unim se tete no na ebi mu ma be ka se bebia se wo tena e kitchen ana wo de school de wo nkobi sisi ano hu se na hu no asesa
me pa chan se de asesa first no tete on na ye se oba se wo bukasa na wo ye adwuma e wo ho ye fie adwuma se die eni ho sa se de be ma tumi ye no oba tumi ye so oba e be ma tumi kaka oba so kaka oba wo office ya be ma so ye den e wo ho be ma wo office oba so wo se de adwuma bia e me ma ye bia oba so ye bia nte se first na ye se oba hye na ya de na se de ni ho bi
o personal experience say unyin no bi ka say o your ba nti ntumi nya we
da bibia betumi aye unyin no bibia kwa nim ti na ma no so sesa unse ade a chi ade sen na ma ne sesa ente se
say wo uko bibi mu sa say obi ka cha say wo your ba nti ade we ana ade we ntumi nya
unse tito ne de mfa ye ma ye nko school na ma no ne ko school no enti ende ye ka ye hye wo fie ba say die eni ho biem
sa na esima wo
sa na esima me enti an say me de ton ade am ye enti me so me bo me homoden say me ma no atumi akọ school no mso so atumi abenya dibre papa bia eden agina
se o hwa den na potin obeka say o pese se aban ana nkofo no mudi enim no omo be ya aboa ema no motumi atumpon
aban so otumi boa ema ne pa na say ema ne mpo no ye brecha ema no so mutumi ema ye so ye sorry e wo abrabo ni say ema no ye bre ema no mutumi emwa de ade a oba be ma betumi aye say oba so tumi ye enti so omo boa ye no mo peja ema ye so ye bem
that's a pan. So that's Mabana here. She tells me that from her personal experience growing up, she was prevented from going to school with, and she was stoned. that that is for men and that women are supposed to be in the kitchen. But she tells me that she's working very hard to make sure that her children, of which I want to believe they are females, get that opportunity that she never had. I'll be speaking to some more women here at Makola. We are still in Makola, interacting some of the most hardworking of women here, almost in the entire country, to find out from them the perspectives whilst the world is celebrating International Women's Day. Let me get closer to the lady here. Madam Pacha, you're saying?
Pacha, you're from me, baby.
Now we're there.
Pacha, me yeah beast no.
Pacha, say you're frozen, baby.
Baby.
Udi angasa no.
There, but baby, I know be a friend. Will be any say baby. By me, dear de Beatrice Abana Fusia.
Beatrice, auntie. Then now you are.
Pacha, me ton beast no.
Okay. Auntie, and then if you are sitting in a di a mother, ne bisa say emano mujumano etisesen ujumana oyano. How difficult is it?
Pacha, me mejumani say edin pa. Ejuma bi enu head from baby edin. Se say me say me sorry 2:30 ahemrache a. 2:30 no me dwale awia me ye bibia me free fie no na abo be ye 3. Enti a check by 3:30 na me wa ha. Me ba ne ma ba be shedwa no na me ton. Me san wo nkwala wo fie so. Me ba me ja nkwala ni ska be man kan ho. Me jo muska na ma ba nti om be sorry no. Na om anka se dwale na om ko school. Na me so ma be ton ne ma no nti enwumre e bo be se 4 to 5 a. Na ma park na me ko no ma ko ton ade.
It looks like a lot of things. Edin
papa. O sole am na chi 2:30 obi o wa oda o sorry 8 o'clock. Ba yen solid 2:30. 2:30 no ba wa hwe wi aye timo awie nyina da ye so. Ebo 8 so aba for be ba be pamo ye. Na nka me person ka aba for ne bata mamu wa ha na muhu bra ye bre. Me ba park sa ne ma we nyina gidigidi o. Nti ye den so ye be ne den. Ye mani nti because sabi o school ye yan kobi. Ti ye mani nti ye bra ma ye ma no se be ya omo me bre se de ye bre. Enu nti na ma ye bre sa.
Ti ase nti ebi mu nso nyi no titimrem ne be ka se o oba de esa wotena kitchen. Nsesa wo ko school, nsesa wo ye say we de mema adwuma, o ye say. Unyi no uko bibi ufa bibi musa.
Oh, me de school no do me ko kakra. Me we JHS na me ko SS ba na me ma me so no ye single parents. No oni ska nti ma we SS. O na me de betena na me ton ade.
Won't me anko no. I didn't want to to as ye ka say o ba nti jai ana bibi nti na want
me de obi anka say me oba nti mi nya ba na ska na eni ho. Me ma me nko ana me ka say no ye single parents. No oni ska o ska de anko be mama ko ba na ska no na eni ho nti na ni jai school.
Enti ye ka say ene ye njai sa ade na ye ma no. Wa Ebeka say wo your ban ntumi nye ana we ye bema adwuma then na obeka fa ho
dabi ano de maye oba ye bibia maye nka say onyai e wo se oye sabi o ye se ade a do enye bibia obema betimi aye na oba betimi aye enye bibia ba niam bebre wo ho a obema betimi aye a oba so betimi aye enti no oba no the dance pilot clan or person or ye or bit of full so betimi aye wo se ye man ye oba person o ko school a ko drew obo ne masters ana obe professor wo se ye man bibi oba person o ye bia ense se ye putu ma off na ye man no sabi yen ye wa abadaye ye wa abadaye wo niam bebre hu se wo de oba na we kwaje agree or can if you educate a woman you educate a nation no enti yan ma de se wo ma ne mema na se bia usika nso a asam na me konfo oba ne ko school oba ma ne hia ma no omusu ma nipa omu wa abadaye ma nipa.
That's the Beatrice span. So that's Beatrice here. She deals in beads. We are still in the Makola here interacting some of the women here. We're speaking to 2 women and Beatrice says she has to wake up as early as 2 a.m. get her household ready before she makes her way to the market to try to make ends meet every single day. It's not an easy thing to do, I want to believe. Definitely a difficult thing to make it. Today we are celebrating women across the world. And these two gallant women certainly are making things happen. At least they are bringing goods closer to you than ever before here. From Makola here, I just want to give you the quote that Beatrice left us with, that definitely educating a woman is greater, far greater than letting her stay in the kitchen or stay somewhere away from the classroom or deny her that opportunity that she needs. Reporting from Makola Market, Michael Ashali for JoyNews.
Thank you so much, Michael. And you've put a lot into that. The beads of sweat tell me the picture right there. But what's brilliant, engagements that we've had, women sharing their own stories. 3 a.m., no be joke matter. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll share with you our Living Standards series, the latest. Do stay. Thank you so much for staying. We bring you a teaser now of our Living Standards series, the latest. Today, we focus on long-distance drivers and traders who bring in food from the hinterlands to major markets, the risks they face, and their living standard, or their standard of living. Here's Mamiesi Thompson's report. This is just a snippet. Later, you can catch the full thing.
You can't buy person with your mind.
Well, you have 400,000. Now, what always say we are better than Mayansika.
Yeah, mommy, 20 Ghana. 20 Ghana, no. And I'm not going to let you made it the womb.
In subsequent bulletins, we will bring you the full report by Mamiesi Thompson. But I cannot leave without shouting out all our women. Happy International Women's Day to you, to my mother, Susie Agbeko, to Na Amanua, Sister Mary, Deborah Sapon, Auntie Mary Osei, Madam Victoria Kudao, Baby Ya, you know yourself, and Madam Blebo, and all my family, friends, the females, and my colleagues here at the Multimedia Group, all females. Happy International Women's Day to you. And finally to Sister Vida, hardworking, industrious woman. Today's your birthday. Happy, happy birthday to you. To all of you out there, let's break the bias. And on a day like this, happy International Women's Day. My name is Benjamin Akako. Our next bulletins are at 10 and at noon. Tomorrow, let's catch fire on the AM show. Have a good day.